Hello and welcome to this episode of the Summer of Self-Love. I'm Mia Saenz, and in this episode, you get to meet Denise Faith. Now, when we met a couple years ago, I just totally adored her. And so, yes, she is a friend and a colleague, but I really respect her work with the fascia. I didn't even understand what fascia was until I met her. And she also dedicated her time to the self-love revolution classroom during the pandemic to teach classes. So let's welcome her. Welcome, Denise.
Thank you. I'm so excited to be here.
It's beautiful to have you here. I love the work that you do. I love the approach that you take to life. I love you. So, would you like to share with us your journey into self-love? I don't think I've ever heard it, so I am excited to hear this.
Well, I was thinking about it when you asked me to be a guest on your show and talk about self-love, and you were asking me the things that I do for how do I express self-love. And it's it's a funny thing because you don't really think about the things that you do. You're not thinking, okay, I'm going to do self-love today. It's just things that we do for ourselves. And I have a few things that I do regularly that definitely make such a difference in my life. And the first thing that I do is, and this I will say that it's something that I always have done, just not in a regimented way, but the last few years I've been doing it in a regimented way, and it has made all the difference. And that is practicing gratitude, having a gratitude practice. And because here is a really interesting fact. Do you know that if you cannot be in stress and gratitude at the same time? So if you are feeling gratitude, acknowledging gratitude, expressing gratitude, whatever stress that might have been going on will not exist in those moments. And that's a really cool fact. So when I say that I do it in a more regimented way, I mean that I have a gratitude journal. And the first thing in the morning, I have this, and I'll give you guys this app that I use because and some people really like to have a notebook next to them. I'm not good with the notebooks. It took me a long time. I have like 8,000 notebooks that have written 3 pages in, and then I get a new notebook. And I'm just, that is not my thing. We all have our things that work for us. And I wanted to be a notebook person, but I wasn't. So I got an app and this is the best app. It's called the 5-Minute Journal app, and it prompts you, and every morning, and you can kind of design it the way that you want it. So it says, what are you grateful for today? So it can be as simple as, I'm grateful for my cute puppy that I wake up next to in the morning. I'm grateful for my husband who made the bed. I'm grateful for the sunshine. I'm grateful that I have trees outside my window. Whatever it is, it can be the smallest thing and it can be the biggest thing. But sometimes there have been days that I forgot to fill out my gratitude journal in the morning, and my day is just going a little wonky. I'm like, what is going on today? And then I realize, oh my gosh, I didn't do my gratitudes. So it really makes a difference in my day, and I will immediately go and do them. But it prompts you. You can put as many as you want. I have to have at least 3. So even if I'm having a really rotten morning, which doesn't happen often, but it does sometimes, there are always those things, right? I will just make sure that I can pull 3 gratitudes out, no matter what kind of mood I'm in. And it always shifts my mood. It's amazing. And then it also goes on to say, it says, what does it say? 3 things, at least 3, you can do more things that you're grateful for. And then it also says, what are you going to do to make today great? And then you also list those things, which really kind of helps set your tone and your intention for the day. And then it asks you for an affirmation that you want for yourself for your day. And it just really, it gets you to just kind of think and put that intention out there, and then you're in gratitude, and it's just such a beautiful way to start the day.
That really is. What I really loved about your gratitude practice that you were talking about was you can't be in stress and you can't be in gratitude, right? So really the basis of gratitude also is keeping us in the present moment, because just like you can't think about the past and you can't think about the future when you're in gratitude. So that's one way to train ourselves. And I love that you do this. It's one way to train ourselves to be in the present moment so that we can get our mind off our monkey mind stuff and stay on the path that we actually want to create. I love that. This app is very, very cool. And the fact that it asks you what you're going to do and then what your affirmation is, really,
Right.
really a strong practice.
You can set the tone of the, like you can set it, if there's something that doesn't resonate with you, you can change it within the app. But I really like those. I like that because it really makes me think, okay, what am I going to do to make today great?
Yeah.
And it can be as simple as, stay present, listen, breathe. It doesn't have to be any kind of big grand task. It can be whatever resonates with you, whatever is going to get you to that next.
Yeah.
And get you through the day.
I like those smaller pieces that you said, like read, right? Because if we're practicing a practice of joy, happiness, peace, enlightenment, mindfulness, whatever it is, spiritual elevation, that's the way that we train our brain on repeat to actually become that being or that person, right?
Absolutely.
Yeah. So that's wonderful. I love that aspect about it.
Yeah. So that one of the things that I'm that shows up in my gratitude journal almost every day is I'm grateful for being in nature, and being in nature is the second thing that my number two of self-love, because first of all, I live in New York City, which is, so it's a weird thing to even say being in nature. I'm very lucky because I live on a little island within New York City. So I actually have nature, and I'm so grateful for that every day. And when I take my dog out in the morning for as many months as I can do it, until it's really just so cold that I can't put my feet on the ground, I go out in slides so I could take my shoes off and stand in the grass and just take a deep breath and let my dog run around, and just, it makes me so happy. And that is a definite form of self-love.
Mm-hmm.
And being a city girl, that morning routine is definitely great in the morning, and in the evening and that's the beauty of having a dog, because it kind of forces me to do that. But in spite of the dog, if I'm just inside for too long and I feel that I'm getting a little stressed or wound up or citified, as I like to say, I get outside and just get some fresh air. Even in the city, fresh air is magic. Yeah. And looking at water, any form of nature that you can bring into your life is amazing, and is definitely giving yourself some love.
I agree that it's powerful for the nature, because one, we come from nature, right? We are elements of it all. And it brings us to the present moment. It doesn't have us going back and forth, because we're usually walking around looking at the trees, or I'm one of those cuckoo ones who looks at the energy coming off the trees. When I was reading Eckhart Tolle, The Power of Now, years ago, and it was talking about the energy that we can produce and see all around us. That's when the trees became vibrant for me. It was really cool. So how can you not be in the present moment, when you're looking at something that excites you? Yeah. And we all need that, don't we? We need it for our whole body, mind, and soul, our whole psyche, in order to, one, to walk so that we have movement and our brain functions, and then to connect to the naturalness of who we are.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And any bit of nature that you can find wherever you live, just getting the fresh air and being outdoors and, taking time to actually look at some of the trees and look at the shapes and look at the branches and just, the wonder of how they are so beautiful and
Yeah.
how they like this. It's just,
Yeah.
it's insane.
Very special. Yeah. That's awesome. So that was number 2, right? On your gratitude. What's number 3?
I bet you can guess what number 3 is. Number 3 is movement.
Yeah.
Doing some movement and moving and opening up my fascia. As you said, I work with fascia, but I do I make sure, and I have done movement every morning and every evening religiously. And the reason why it's even funny for me to talk about, because I am not regimented in any way, shape, or form. I usually put things on my calendar after they happened, just so that I can remember them. So I usually keep all my appointments just in my head, and I end up having to fill out my calendar afterwards so I can bill my clients, because I just know when I have to do things. I'm really not the organization with that. It's just never really resonated with me. But I have, for the last at least 30 years, I would say, have done a morning and an evening, when I wake up in the morning and before I go to sleep, a movement routine that even if I had too much to drink, which is very rare, I don't drink a lot, but I could be in just such a bad state, I will not go to sleep without doing some movements before.
I was going to, can I butt in here? I was going to ask you, I don't drink either right now, but I was thinking of the same thing. What if somebody, would imbibe whatever with something that made them tired or sleepy? You still do it, right? Is that it?
Well, but that's me. This is a very personal choice. I force myself to do it. Like I won't be able to sleep if I haven't done it. It's just so ingrained in me to do it, to do these movements. And all 3 of the things that I've just spoke about, the gratitude, the nature, and the movement, they happen all at once in the morning for me. I go outside. I'm so grateful to be outside. I take my shoes off and I do some fascia maneuvers and some stretches. And it just, first of all, it keeps my body moving freely. I am very fortunate because I have these practices. I don't have pain in my body. Most people who are my age, who are having a lot of issues, and I don't have those things. And I know that it is because I do this practice.
Yeah, that's amazing. Truly amazing.
And it doesn't have to be specifically what I do. Anything. You find your own practice, find what makes you feel good in your body. I mean, how many times when people hear what I do, they always say, oh yeah, I need to stretch more. I need to be, and and I'm thinking, so why don't you? Because it's just one of those things that, that we all have things that we feel like we should do, but we neglect. And I have plenty of those. Believe me, I'm far from perfect, but these are the things that are just non-negotiable for me.
Yeah, I think it's wonderful. Beautiful. Thank you. They're all very powerful self-love tools. Absolutely. So I think you got away with telling us about your entry into self-love. Now, you did say that for you, it was almost something that you didn't even recognize, right? That it was, so would it have started 30 years ago when you were starting your morning and evening routine? What was it fascinates me that you don't have that moment in time where you were conked on the head.
That I was conked on the head and got this message, you have to love yourself.
Yeah, I mean, that kind of thing.
I think that it's definitely evolved, because when I was younger, I didn't think of it as self-love. I thought of it, it was always, there was more of an external thing. It was more about, when I first started doing those things, I think, yes, it made me feel better, but that wasn't the part I was focusing on. I was worried about how I looked.
Mm.
I was much more worried about making sure that I, didn't gain a lot of weight and to do this. So for whatever reason, it just wasn't in my conscious mind until I got older and evolved into realizing how much bigger all of this stuff was than I thought, and how silly my previous thoughts around it were, because I started out in the fitness world.
Mhm.
And I started out in the time when it was just, there was so much body shaming and so much, that's a whole different story. But I think what drove me to do everything happened for a reason and for a purpose. And, I started out, like I said, in the fitness world, and I taught back-to-back exercise classes. Like, I'm talking about the Jane Fonda days.
Right.
A long time ago. I'm dating myself, but yeah, I've lived a lot of years. And I used to teach these high impact classes before we knew anything about how bad it was to jump up and down on cement floors. They were basically like cement floors covered with carpet. And I was 19 years old and I couldn't walk because I couldn't get up and down. My hips, everything was out of whack. So that's how I got into body work and healing, because of my own injuries. Because I was like, this isn't, why am I walking like my grandmother? And I'm not, and it hurts me to get up and down from a car. This is not right. And so in learning how to help myself feel better in my body, that was my whole impetus for then helping other people feel better in their bodies. But I didn't, at that young age, I didn't think of it as self-love. Now I look back and it's like, yes, thank goodness I did this. And I hope that I'm an example for my kids to do this and take care of themselves. I mean, right now I'm not there. I'm way more flexible than my kids. I think that they'll get there, because when you're young, you're just not thinking about those things. You're just not thinking about things in the same way. And I mean, that saying is so true. Youth is wasted on the young, right?
Yeah. I just have to, it made me think of it. You know the show Friends?
Of course.
The character Phoebe, she says, I'm bendy. And that's what it reminds me of you. You're bendy.
I am bendy. And I was bendy as a kid. And then those middle years when I got injured and I was, teaching all those classes and I was running and I had all these injuries, I was not bendy. And now I'm bendy again.
That's awesome. Wonderful. Sorry, I took a moment to cough off there. I would like you to share your fascia work with people, because I learned about fascia in I don't know, maybe 2016, but that was from a rougher way of working with the fascia from Ashley Black, right, with the fascia tool. Then when you and I met, and the gentleness that you brought into it was like, wow. And we're friends, and so I look at your body, I can see you, and I'm not floored, I'm elated for you, but I'm also like, wow, and I've written you before, oh, I saw your video, wow, look at you, you look so gorgeous. So let's talk about fascia for a little bit. I mean, we don't have a lot of time, but let's get into it and share with us the importance of the work that you do for the body, not just that it gives you a toned look, like I suppose yoga does, right? And you also talked about the flexibility and all that. There's so much to doing a fascia routine.
Yes. Well, yes. First of all, fascia is a lot of people don't know this, but fascia, the study of fascia is relatively new. And so that's why you didn't know about it. The actual study of fascia is less than 30 years old, which is crazy in the science world, that's really, really new. What they used to do, the fascia, when they would do cadaver studies in medical school and things like that, when they were opening up a body, they would take the fascia and throw it away. They didn't realize that they would just like, get this gunk out of the way. The fascia encompasses all of the muscles and the bones and the joints and the organs. It's just the stuff around that when they looked at it, they were just like, we don't need this stuff. We want to get to the muscles, joints, bones, and organs. And they did not realize until about 30 years ago, or fewer than 30 years ago, that the fascia has nerve endings. And the fascia has, I mean, you have to get through the fascia on a living body to get to all of those things. But the other really, really super interesting thing is the fascia stores memory and emotions, all of that stuff, trauma. So it's so much bigger than just movement. So oftentimes, and by the way, you were asking about, how I work with fascia. I teach a free class on Tuesdays at 11 a.m. Eastern time on Instagram. My Instagram, it'll be in the link somewhere, right? They can see it, but it's denisefaith.healer. And it's a free class. And it's a really great way because it's a short class, just like an introduction. It's only 25 minutes. And I was saying that I do these practices every day, but I have some people that just come to that free class once a week, and it makes such a difference. And they tell me that they don't do anything else, just that once a week. But if they miss it, it changes everything for them. So it doesn't have to be, you have to do what works for you. But I digress. Anyway, so sometimes when doing this work and these movements, as we open up the fascia, I have had so many emotions. People just will start crying or have a certain memory that is associated with a certain organ. I mean, it's too much to go into all the specifics on this short little call here, but it is, okay, this is going to sound like such a dad joke, but it's fascinating. It's really fascinating. And what is stored in the fascia and what comes out. And I have seen so many different.
So I need to interrupt you to ask you. So my work also with somatic work and the emotions, right? The body, mind, and spirit. So that's where the emotions are stored. I kept wondering, okay, because I'm a brainiac kind of person. I'm like, okay, how far does it go? Where do the emotions lie? Do they lie in between, the muscles and the bones? And so it's in the fascia.
Fascia. But it's, it can be more specific around certain organs, certain organs, all the organs are associated with certain emotions. And so there are certain movement patterns that sometimes if somebody is doing a certain pattern and a release, and I mean, so many different things can happen. I've seen people be in a certain movement and then they cower because it's like a memory of being beaten as a child or in a past life. There's
right.
So much. It goes very, very, very deep how this can.
Wow.
Yes.
Wow. I'm just, the reason I'm blown away is because we try to release the emotions stuck in the body, right? The body keeps a score. There's so many books and conversations about it. One of the leading people is also Gabor Mate. And so this is like, wow, because it's almost like a fuller picture, at least for me. It's a more complete picture of the whole. So I like to know everything about how it works, right? And we are a vehicle, right, to a degree. And so that's just another avenue that you just opened up my world. So thank you.
It's funny because I was always like that. I had to know, well, how does it work? I need the logistics about it. And the big lesson for me, since I've been working in this way with fascia, is let that stuff go and just feel. and learn it as you do it. Because if you're trying so hard to learn it and make sense of it, you're not going to get to where you are if you can just kind of
Right.
flick up education for a minute and just feel it and tune into your body and see what comes up.
Right. I also believe that in releasing trauma caught in the body, that like emotional trauma caught in our mental capacity, if we have clarity around it, we can move other areas off too at the same time or easily afterwards. So I like that you brought that up, because to let it go, if you're crying in the moment and you remember a traumatic experience, be in that moment, feel it, live it if you have to, but let it go.
Exactly.
And to let it go is, I know I have so many clients that keep bringing and dredging up their stuff years later, or even a week later or two after they let it go. So you haven't let it go. So the purpose of letting go is literally to remove it out of your psyche. It's no longer needed, wanted, or accepted.
Right.
I'm sorry, now go back. Finish up. Sorry. Where did I leave off?
I mean, this conversation could go on for days, but letting go is a big part of it. But sometimes just letting it come up, just acknowledging it, that's enough for some people.
Yeah.
Enough for some people. Just being aware. Sometimes people have trauma in their bodies that they have blocked out often, and they don't even remember. And then it comes up and it brings out all these emotions. And yeah, sometimes people hang on to it, but oftentimes just having it come up is enough, just to acknowledge that it was there, that it is gone, and then it allows them to move on. But everybody is different. Everybody is different. There is one thing that's going to work for everyone. That's why I said, even in talking about my own practices of self-love, you have to make it your own. Everybody's going to have different ways that are going to work for them and resonate with them.
Right. And some people, before we say goodbye and close out here, some people also focus on their spiritual side or their body side or their mind. And so learn to integrate it all together, because that's the truest way to a healing, is when it's all complete rather than just one side or another. You know, I know that you were, before you started getting more evolved, right? That you were so focused on your body. I was so focused on the spiritual stuff. And so it allows me to see and I've worked really hard on the body, mind, and spirit, just like you have. And so it's something to show people that this is part of our growth, that we focus on one thing instead of embracing all of it together.
And the combination, and it wasn't, when I said I was so focused on my body, I was talking about the physical, the reasons that I started these movements, didn't have the bigger picture that came in later. And I was also always into the spiritual side, but it was never together. And it's the fact that they're all one, and that it has to be all, the way to make it more abundant all around is to bring it all together.
Yeah.
And that is the truth. And I'll just give you one more tip, is when you are having something that is going on in your body physiologically, you're feeling something physically, tune in to, well, what am I feeling right now? What are my emotions right now? Not even around that thing, but just what are my feeling, and what are my perceptions? That's another big one. What is going on in my surroundings? What am I perceiving? And those three things, like, what am I thinking? What am what's going on in my physical body, my emotions, and my perceptions? And that kind of is a way to bring it all together.
Yeah, that's really beautiful. Thank you so much for joining us today. It was really great.
Yes, of course. I'm grateful to be here. Grateful to be here. And I have a gift.
Yes.
That will be available for a limited time if you go to my website, which is under construction. It's really just a landing page, denisefaith.com, and Mia, you'll put it in the notes, right?
Yes.
If you just put your name in the mailing list in this time period, put your email in, and you will get a gift. I'm gonna send you a special video of a modified, a short version, which is what I do, a short version of these movements, these fascial movements that I do in the morning and the evening, just so that you can give them a try and see if they resonate, and see if it makes a difference in how you feel, not just in your body, but everywhere.
Yeah. Wonderful. Thank you so much. I just adore you. Thank you.
Mwah.
And thank you all for joining us. We'll see you in another episode.